Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our webinar for today, Florida Math Pathways, Putting Students at the Center. I am Kimberly Krupa, and it is my privilege to serve as the local College Access Network consultant for the Florida College Access Network. I don't get to do a lot of talking today. I just get to be your MC and talk a little bit about why we're here and a little bit of housekeeping and how today is going to go. So first, we would love to hear your thoughts as our panel discussion gets going and we hear from our keynote speaker. Please submit your questions in the chat box. You're also welcome to take screenshots and send your reflections to our social media channels. You can see our Twitter handle here, or we should probably say X, and our hashtags FCAN and TalentStrongFL. This webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within about a week, in addition to a key takeaways document that we'll put on our website and all of our channels, so you'll have access to all of that content. On behalf of the Florida College Access Network, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of our mission and vision and sort of our why. We lead the collaborative movement to ensure every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. And you can see our vision here of working together. We are all about collaboration and we are all about student success. And that is the focus of today's Math Pathways webinar as well. We do our work in these bucket areas from research and data to today at the bottom, convenings for collaboration, hosting and facilitating content-rich discussions of the topics of our day. Nothing's really hotter right now than math and math pathways and being innovative in that really important space, which is a gateway to college access for so many students, including me. And I know we all have our math stories, and we would love to hear your math story as we get going. We stand on the shoulders of these 7 conditions for success. Not going to read them to you. Again, this is going to be a fast-paced session, and we want to get to our fantastic speakers. But just in the middle, you can see the multiple pathways to success pillar that I highlighted, because that is the theme for today, and that is a core component of everything FCAN does. And I know that that is near and dear to the heart of our panelists and our keynote speaker. So welcome to the Florida Math Pathways webinar. In a couple minutes, I'm going to turn it over to our keynote and also doing double duty as our panel MC, Kiaira McCoy, soon to be Dr. McCoy, has quite a robust resume, and my colleague is going to put that in the chat box for you. Kiaira serves as the director of the Florida Student Success Center, whose mission is to serve as a resource of evidence-based, innovative practices and timely information for Florida's colleges. She has been knee-deep in Florida Math Pathways work since joining the Florida Student Success team, and also aligns actively with her dissertation research. And we expect to be calling her Dr. McCoy this spring, along with another one of our panelists, Michael Paul, who will introduce shortly. So welcome, Kiaira. I wish I could read your entire bio because you're amazing, but please give that a read in our chat box. Our next panelist is Dr. Tommy Minton, who is the Dean of Mathematics at Seminole State College of Florida and has taught math and statistics in the Florida college system since 1998. He has been Dean since 2012 and is going to talk to us a lot about his experience on the Math Pathways Committee, which he has worked on since 2018. So we get to learn from a collective more than a decade of work on this effort that you all have engaged in. And again, Dr. Minton's bio, his full bio is in the chat box for you. Dr. Megan Kavanaugh is a mathematics professor at Polk State College and is also currently serving as math department coordinator. She earned her Doctor of Education degree in Educational Leadership and Administration from FSU and a Master of Science degree in Applied Math from Western Carolina. Our third panelist, Michael Paul, in addition to working on her doctorate, which she will be finishing soon, I was giving her that title early because I'm so confident in her, is an assistant professor of math at Tallahassee Community College. And like our last panelist, Andrew Cannon, also spent years in secondary teaching math, so brings a cross-system expertise in what it means to teach math and lead students to success in math. Michael holds a BA in math from the University of North Florida and an MAT in math education from Jacksonville University. She's a doctoral candidate also at FSU, majoring in educational policy and program evaluation. And I really want you all to read the last part of her bio that's in the chat box, where it teaches about what her research is on and her passion for this space. And finally, Andrew Kennan, professor of mathematics at Florida State College in Jacksonville. Now you're in your 11th year teaching at the collegiate level, but you had 5 years teaching math in Florida. And I know you told me a little bit about that, and you'll tell our guests as well. He's on the FSCJ committee that's preparing for the new MGF, which I had to look that up. It's the mathematics general and finite classes for all of us non-math people, who will all be math people in the next 60 minutes. Anyway, Andrew will be piloting those in spring 2024 in preparation for a rollout next school year. So thank you for your grace in letting me give abbreviated bios. You're going to learn so much more about these awesome people. And we're going to have Kiaira start sharing her screen and take it away by telling us about the Florida Math Pathways. Background, the why behind it, the story behind today. And then we are going to turn to our panelists with a series of pretty structured panel discussion questions. And I'll be your friendly timekeeper to make sure that we're staying on pace with the clock. And then our guests, you can pose questions in the chat box as we go, and we can take those questions at the end. So Kiaira, thank you so much for joining us. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, for that warm welcome. And thank you so much, FCAN, for allowing me to be here today. Before I jump into my very, very brief overview of Florida Math Pathways and the redesign, I definitely want to acknowledge the previous directors of the Florida Student Success Center, Naomi Sleep and Dr. Abby Ivy, as well as the former Executive Vice Chancellor for the Division of Florida Colleges, Dr. Carrie Henderson, and all of the members of the statewide Mathematics Council. They've sort of been shepherding this work. I've since just started at the Florida Student Success Center in March, and so definitely want to highlight their contributions in getting us to this point, and definitely highlight all of the work that we'll continue to do. And as I talk about the things that have been done thus far. So let's go ahead and kick things off and talk about what we've been doing thus far. So the Florida Student Success Center launched in 2018 in partnership with Jobs for the Future, Helios Education Foundation, and also the Florida College System Foundation. And really at the core of our mission within the first year of our inception was really Math Pathways redesign and really content alignment. That was really, again, our primary initiative within our first few years of being a functioning center. And so why focus on mathematics? Nationally, we all know that hundreds of thousands of students fail gateway post-secondary math courses each year. We know that almost a lot of students are sort of shepherded into algebra. That's the gateway mathematics course, even if you're a student that's in a non-STEM academic program. And we know that it continues to serve as a significant academic barrier for post-secondary degree attainment. And so to that end, my predecessors really wanted to facilitate convening so that Florida high school instructors, college and university faculties could collaborate on a statewide level to improve student success in mathematics. And so they put together these 3 work groups consisting of about 25 representatives each that would be charged with doing 3 different things, right? So they had to entertain these complex issues around mathematics pathways. And so they had to think about how we were preparing high school students that were transitioning into post-secondary degree programs. They also had to consider a wide range of students that were, transitioning through varied pathways in the Florida college system. And then again, thinking about students that didn't necessarily need algebra to be successful if they were going into non-STEM degree academic programs. And then we also wanted to think about how we were best preparing Florida college system students to be successful upon transitioning into state university systems. Guiding values consisted of transparency, collaboration, respect, diversity, and evidence-based inquiry while they were working throughout these vast systems. And then deliverables consisted of not only what was working and not working, but what could be scaled throughout the state. And that resulted in recommendations not only for institutional policies and practices, but also a state policy that we'll talk about in just a second. And so the culmination of this year-long mathematics redesign really resulted in 11 recommendations for state policy, institutional policies, and evidence-based practices designed for scale. And so this publication can be found on our website. And again, this resulted in 11 recommendations. And so we are going to spend most of our time today, most of our brief time today, talking about one of those recommendations that resulted in a statewide state bill in 2021 that passed in legislation. And that was to create common mathematics pathways by aligning mathematics courses to programs, meta majors, and careers in Florida. And so this was really a faculty-driven initiative that's reflected in State Bill 366 from that 2021 legislative session. And that bill language is reflected on your screen. The specific language from the bill indicates a facilitation of seamless transfer of credit, a reduction of excess credit hours, and to make sure that students were taking the courses that they actually needed to be successful in their academic programs and in their eventual careers. And it also directed the statewide articulation agreement to establish 3 mathematics pathways for students. And it also required a committee with representation from the state university system, the Florida college system, and also from district career centers to identify those mathematics pathways, to identify the general education core courses, and then also to identify statewide learning outcomes. And so those committee members were to meet and to address all of those areas. And so the committee really took an approach that would, not just focus on specific courses that students needed to take. Their focus was really on the specific skills that students needed to be exposed to in order to be successful, again, in their academic programs and their eventual careers. And so they did this by tapping those disciplinary experts and those subject matter experts in the field. And so they disseminated a survey out to the state university system and also to the Florida college system. And that survey resulted in over 500 responses, which then boiled down to our beautiful pathways that we have now, which are the algebra through calculus pathway, the statistical reasoning pathway, and the mathematical thinking and context pathway. So the algebra through calculus pathway is intended for students whose academic program requires a foundation of algebra, followed by a sequence of courses that may lead to calculus. And the Gen Ed core course that's associated with that pathway is Mac 1105 or college algebra. For statistical reasoning pathway, this pathway is designed for a student whose academic program is designed for them to gain a statistical knowledge foundation in areas such as descriptive statistics, probability, and inferential statistics that will allow them to use and interpret data. And that Gen Ed core course associated with this pathway is Statistical Methods 1. And the mathematical thinking and context pathway, this is thought to be a modernization of what has traditionally been offered through MGF 1106 and 1107, which is currently in Gen Ed core. And it's meant for students whose program of study is not required for them to be in the algebra or statistics pathway. And the mathematical thinking and context pathway is thought to contextualize mathematics and to focus more so on logic. And so the general education core course associated with this pathway is MGF 1130, Mathematical Thinking, and it is a new general education core course that will be taking effect in the 2024-2025 academic year. So this slide represents a visual scope of our statewide pathways. So for associate in science and applied science students within our college system institutions, the pathway will consist of one course. And for most students, that will conclude their math pathway. And for AA and bachelor's degree seeking students, that will need to take at least two math courses. They will need to take at least one predefined gen ed core course as codified in rule. And then the committee wanted to allow for at least that second course, that to be left up to the institution or to the academic program for them to determine what that would be. And so the committee recognized that institutions and academic programs needed to have some flexibility in determining, as long as it didn't deviate too far from what the statewide learning outcomes were set forth. And so more information on that can be found on the Office of Articulation's website. And so next step, the Florida Student Success Center has issued a request for proposals for faculty throughout the state to work on open educational resources, to develop open master course shelves using open educational resources. And so they are working on master course shelves for developing new course shelves for mathematical thinking and context courses, and also for our general education core mathematical courses. And so they're working on those and piloting those materials this semester, and we're looking to have those available in the spring. And then we're also working with the Division of Public Schools in order to align the new mathematical thinking and context courses with best standards. And so stay tuned, because there's always something happening at the Florida Student Success Center, especially as it relates to math. And with that being said, now that you've heard from me about the overview, I think it's important for us to pivot to the people that were in the room making the decisions, and the faculty that are doing this work every single day. And so I'm going to stop sharing, and I think it's important for us to hear exactly how we got here. And so, Tommy, can you give us a little bit of insight on, your experiences serving on the committee and, how we got here?
Well, my pleasure. I was definitely in the room where it happened. So, but anyway, it goes back to 2018, as Kimberly had mentioned in the opening, when we first did the math convening, actually, before we even formed the work groups, and we looked at to say, we had done some research from the data center of Texas, and talked about, does everybody need college algebra? It was kind of where it started, and this college algebra course that's been around since the 1950s and hasn't changed. I mean, does everybody need this to get through a college degree? There was a lot of agreement in the room that probably not. So we formed the work groups, as mentioned. I was the chair of the subgroup that was the Florida College System to State University System Alignment, which was really good because it brought together faculty and administrators like myself from both sides, from the FCS and the SUS, to really talk about a really open slate. Like, we basically said, no ideas off the table. We want to talk math pathways, redesign. What do we feel we need to work on? Throw it all out there. Big brainstorming sessions. What do we want to do? A lot of discussions, again, a lot centered around college algebra, but just other things, and saying, really, what could we do differently? The 11 recommendations that came out, again, the math pathways was a large one, going back to 2013 and Senate Bill 1720, when it created the meta majors and changed the developmental ed. Of the 8 meta majors, 6 or 7 of them all had college algebra as like the gateway course. So again, we were still in this mold of students go through high school, going through algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and then potentially pre-calculus. No other really places to go. And they naturally came here and thought, oh, basic algebra, intermediate algebra, I should take college algebra, right? I just keep going. College algebra has not always been a very successful course for a lot of students. And so we wanted to change the mind frame of saying, let's look at this from a different perspective, not just from what the students are doing, the programs, the majors. Why are you sending students into college algebra? Is this the skills they really need? So we had proposed the 3 math pathways by trying to do a skills survey to the different majors and saying, in these 4-year programs, AS programs, what actual skills do you want your students to know? And find that a vast majority of them wasn't really necessarily what it lined up with what's in college algebra. So that kind of, again, gave us kind of our background to say, yes, this is what we want to do. So coming out of that work group in 2019, we did some presentations. We formed the Math Council between K-12 educators and FCS educators and said, again, what priorities do we want to work on these recommendations? And the math pathways was our major one. But we needed legislative involvement to get them to change statute to be able to say, yes, let's do this. Math Pathways Committee was formed. There were 8 FCS representatives, 8 from the university system, 2 from the tech colleges, and a liaison through the Student Success Center and the Articulation Committee. Personally, I worked on the subgroup of that worked on statistical reasoning pathway, but we were all involved in all of it. And we got down and said, these are the 3 pathways we wanted, as Kiaira already showed, the algebra to calculus, which we all agreed, college algebra. Although that pathway could have some curriculum changes down the road. Once we get it in place, we know we could maybe streamline that sequence because there's a lot of repetition in it. And the other two were tricky because we're trying to still figure out which majors we want to go in there. We've surveyed the majors to say, now that you know these are the courses, where do you think you best fit? And then we can make state level determinations at that. But we also felt it was important that we don't want to dictate the entire pathway. There was a lot of feeling, especially from the university representatives on the Pathways Committee, feeling like we have a lot of our own courses. We already have things we've designed to go into our program. So we were like, okay, then we'll just say what the gateway core course is for each pathway and let that second course be an institutional decision, as Kiaira showed on her PowerPoint slide. That way, like for the statistical reasoning, for example, we know they need statistics. Maybe it's going to then take a statistical methods too. A lot of social science majors might have their own research in social sciences type of course. Data mining, there's programs like at St. Pete College that's looking at data mining. Big data is becoming very big, to be repetitive there, but it's a chance then they could go in there. Or maybe statistics is the one requirement, and then the students may just take something out of one of the other 2 paths just to kind of meet what the requirement is. Maybe nursing wants to keep college algebra. Business majors need to go on to business calculus, things like that. So we only wanted to say what was the first course, and we could work on those, and then we can look at the rest of the pathways as the majors kind of fall in there. I think from all my experiences serving on all these committees, there was a lot of openness to, we can do something different. Sure, there's still some groups that are like, oh, I want to change. I want to hold on to this, which again, that's why we didn't dictate the second course, because we felt, okay, there's some room here. There's some room for you to keep what you want. But there was a lot of still feeling of, yes, we could get this to streamline. If we could get students to take and to be successful in their first course, that would be great, right? That's what we always see is students starting in intermediate algebra, then to college algebra, they struggle through these courses. Would it have been better if they would have taken the new mathematical thinking or statistics first, been successful, and then be like, oh, maybe I can switch to the other one. Maybe I can do algebra to calculus and go into STEM. They could still switch over after the first course because they still need 2 gen ed courses, right, for an AA degree, a bachelor's degree. But if we can be more successful, especially maybe students who are coming back after a long break, they're not going to remember their algebra from 20 years ago. But if you put them in a math thinking course that has, oh, things I can see, I get that, and we've seen that. We've seen a lot of students say, this seems more relevant to me than algebra did. So if they feel attached, relevant, and do it and be successful, that's our whole goal, right? To get students to degree faster with A's and B's, preferably over C's and T's. But again, my experience has just been a lot of open-mindedness, a lot of people wanting to work together to bring about this change. And that's what happened in the room where it happened.
And Megan, I'm curious about your experiences. Did you experience the same thing serving on the steering committee, or what did you all hope to accomplish?
To echo some of Tommy's comments, math is a challenge to our students for a variety of reasons, and exploring why was our primary objective, and our secondary objective being, what can we do to address this? So through our work, we realized that relevance was an issue, as well as course alignment. And out of all of the policy and practice recommendations that were developed, the implementation of these 3 pathways stood out as a natural first step, but also probably the most impactful. Through the experience, we had the opportunity to stop and analyze our math curriculum in its totality. Essentially, we got to ask, okay, time out. If we start from scratch and keeping our students' needs at the center of this work, what do they really need to learn through their math coursework? To get to this piece, we developed a survey, and we actually surveyed subject matter experts in various programs to see what math content our students needed, not only in their programs, but also in their careers. And we used those results to build the new courses in the mathematical thinking and context pathway. If you looked at the new courses and the old courses, you would see some overlapping content. There's this misconception that we've just repackaged our old courses, when in actuality, the driving force behind those the new courses is completely different. The old liberal arts courses that we're phasing out, they were designed to prepare students for an exam that we no longer use, whereas our new courses are designed to give students the mathematical skills that they need for their programs and ultimately for their careers. So this will hopefully get at that relevance and alignment piece that we set off trying to address.
And I just wanted to say with Megan, thank you. You actually came up with the theme for today, putting students at the center. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the math pathways are putting students at the center? Because you told me in such a beautiful way that I want the world to hear.
Okay. So Tommy got at this a little bit, that college algebra was kind of the go-to previously. And I think that through our work, we were able to stop and pause and really say, if we put aside what we've been doing and we reimagined math pathways for our students from the ground up, and it was like a pipe dream activity, right? Where we got to decide, what do they really need? What do our students really want? That sort of thing. That's the activity that we got to do. And as an educator, that has been kind of a dream, because there's not a lot of opportunity to stop and pause and say, if we built this from the ground up with our students at the center of this work, what could this look like? And I feel like in the state of Florida right now, we're getting to do that.
So shifting a little bit from policy to implementation, Michael, what has your experience been in sort of redesigning MAC 1105 and coming in and building out some of, especially taking MAC 1105? You took the college algebra course that everybody has been like, college algebra, that's the course that we're all sort of side-eyeing collectively. What has been your experience coming in and sort of breathing new life or trying to reinvigorate this course that has been, the one that we've been looking to, kind of breathe new life into for so long?
So I think like Megan and Tommy said, not every student needs to take a course in college algebra or in algebra or go through calculus in order to achieve their individual goals, but a lot of students do. And the students who are looking at STEM careers, or the students who just have a traditional understanding of what they want from their college experience, and that may include going up through calculus, even though that isn't for every student, the students who are in college algebra have been faced with this massive task of overcoming the barrier that this class poses. It can keep them from transferring, keep them from going on to the next course, and really provides this kind of developmental struggle for them to overcome. And I think that when we consider putting students at the center, we consider really thinking about what they need. So algebra is taught so predominantly because it forms the basis for so much future abstract math reasoning. But so many times, so often it really has been restricted to these foundational skills, and students sort of have to prove their merit and their worth by overcoming this obstacle and earning their way toward real math that they might need for engineering or for practice. And I think that that has stripped away a lot of the creative applications that make us, those of us who study math, love math, and make people who are interested in those applied fields and in those STEM fields passionate and interested in using this tool toward their, future workplace. And so in implementing this redesign, I think the biggest challenge has been finding messy, authentic, sloppy applications that students will encounter in their future major and that they will encounter in their workplace, but also helping to find applications that are accessible to a student learning college algebra. So the course still contains all of those foundational skills. It still assesses and measures their ability to work with equations and graphs and different representations of functions and all of these basic skills that they cannot do higher math without. But what we've tried to do, and what my partner Vijay and I have tried to do, is really provide opportunities for them to also experience those satisfying, challenging, and vague applications that require creative thinking, that require stepping outside of an algorithm or stepping outside of some preconceived notion of how there's a right way to solve this problem, and really challenge them to think about the concepts that they're tackling. So, I was going to start to provide an example, but I think it would be better just to say that when we view college algebra as a gateway course, teachers so often serve as gatekeepers as opposed to somebody who is tending the gate, opening the gate, helping students come through, pulling them through, enticing them, and letting them see what's on the other side. And in this new shell that is being developed for college algebra, what we see are kind of more activities that help students discover the joy of mathematical reasoning. When we think of solving a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula or completing the square, it's some pretty dry stuff. But when you really think about how we might investigate profit and why it's natural that profit would follow a quadratic model, and we really start to look at what sort of business decisions might be made based on different points at this parabolic profit model, they start to get excited because many of them see themselves as pursuing business or finance or economics. They see themselves as potential business owners or as managers, even in the job that they might have now while they're in college. And so engaging students in those discussions, providing support for instructors who haven't really tried to introduce these high-level sort of inquiry-based assignments at the college algebra level, providing the support that instructors and students need, because it's scary stuff. It's not just taking a risk and considering being wrong, but students first, when they see a non-traditional problem, their first reaction is fear. They came into this class knowing that it's a gateway, it's a barrier, feeling like they might not be able to do it. And when they see a problem that feels out of their depth, their first response is to sort of shut down and think, oh, well, I don't see how it's going to be answered, and therefore I am somehow lacking. I must not get it. I must not be able to do this. And so the shift in being able to turn from a direct instructor to somebody who is a coach for students, helping them to develop that confidence to persevere even when they feel that, oh no moment, I don't think I can, has been a delight. It really does spark my creative interest as an instructor, and I think that it's going to it's just the way forward that we need to go. And the truth is, K-12 has been doing this better than we have for a long time now. There's very frequently more rigorous math problems and standards than maybe what we've expected from our college algebra students, because we're so serious about making sure that they have this foundational mastery. But they've been working on these foundational skills since 6th grade. And if you just give them the same things over and over again that they were successful with or weren't successful with in their secondary experience, it's boring. It lacks the life and the pulse that makes math a tool to describe the physical world, that works hand in hand with the sciences, that works hand on hand with innovation. And so I think in implementing this, it has been a real pleasure to help students see themselves as somebody who might not only be capable of math, but might actually really enjoy it and not just have it be a requirement that they need on the path towards what they'd actually prefer to be doing.
And I sure wish I had you as my college algebra instructor when I was taking it way back when. I hope that person is not on this webinar. And Andrew and Megan, they are sort of chartering these uncharted waters, and they are piloting and working on course material for our new math courses. So I'll let Andrew, give us his thoughts on, his experiences. And so I'll let him start first, and then we'll shoot over to Megan.
Yeah, so there's a couple things Dr. Paul said right there that really caught my eye, and I wanted to speak on for a second. So she mentioned like college algebra being a gateway, and this may be a little bit wrong, but I've always felt that way. And like college algebra is a hard class because you have so many varying different students. You have the students that are very good at algebra and going on to calculus and going on to be engineers, versus the student that just needs that class to graduate, and like that's the last class they need to take and they'll be done after it. And I got to a point there, like I didn't want to be the gatekeeper anymore. Like I wanted to open gates, like Dr. Paul, or soon to be Dr. Paul, sorry, say. And I used to like ask my student, okay, what are you majoring in? Like, are you going to calculus next? Are you going to pre-calculus next? And if they're saying, yeah, I'd be like, okay, you need to know how to do this topic. Like you need to know how to do this to be successful in pre-calculus. Whereas this other one that I can just tell is barely hanging on, like just give me my C so I can get my degree. I'm like, hey, don't worry about that topic. Like you don't really need that where you're going. That's fine. That's what I'm saying. It may be a little bit wrong to do that, but like, that's kind of where college algebra had gotten. And the other thing that she said there that I really liked was about the K-12 and the different, I did teach K-12 right when they switched, and there for a second, I don't know all the K-12 stuff now because it's been 11 years since I've been there. But they started doing end of course exam, and there was like a law that was going to be they had to pass algebra 2 end of course exam to even graduate. I don't think that's still there, but it could be. And that was very, very challenging for students. And then I moved to the college level and was teaching the 1828, the dev ed classes, and saw them, hey, let's get rid of those. I'm like, oh, okay. So in high school, they're trying to bring those people up to be past algebra 2, and then they go straight into college algebra when they get to college. So like the thought process was there, but we all know that most students don't come into our class prepared and like that kind of different things. But what I like what soon to be Dr. Paul, I'm just going to keep calling you that, said there was that they see this over and over again, and they have those foundations built up since 6th grade. I use this example a lot, and it's kind of a silly example, but when you go to Google something, we all get information so fast on Google, but have you ever went to the second page of Google? Most of us don't scroll down past the first 4 or 5 links. What you do is if you can't find your information in the first four to 6 links, you go back and you reword it and you try again. And that's kind of the way like my educational philosophy has been. Why do I struggle in one semester in college algebra and then type in the same thing into Google the next semester and expect something different? Like, let me switch what I'm doing to see if I get a different result. So like we do this in our normal life and different things like that. So like, why don't we try this in education? Let's switch what we're doing a little bit to see if we garner more results. So that was one of the things that I was thinking about there. So as far as the MGF classes, I do feel a little bit more at the ground level because we have been working on like pulling content for like a year and a half now. I feel like we're going to pilot it officially in the spring, but we have a pretty innovative group of people, faculty working on it. And it is very, we want to make it like project and activity based. Like we want it to be a different type of class. Like when we set out to look at content, we wanted to identify programs and which ones had like standardized testing at the end and see what kind of topics they're covering. Because we want to make sure that the majors that are pulled to that pathway, we're going to make them successful on the math part of that test. So we started going through topic and looking at that. And like I said, like what are we doing different? How can we better prepare life or the students for life with math? And that is a question we always get. When am I going to use this in math, real life? And like in college algebra, a lot of times I'm like, you're not going to, you know, if we're on the system of equations, no, you're probably not going to ever use that in real life, but you're going to run into a problem in real life and you're going to say, hey, I don't know how to do this whole problem, but I know how to do this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece and put it together. And then you can solve the whole thing. So like those critical thinking skills, we all know that's why they need math. But yeah, so like we said, how do we do this real life thing? And we want to integrate technology. And like, I'm on this kick right now because I actually just talked to someone earlier this week in Connecticut, and in Connecticut, they are like banning the TI-84 in statistics because it's not useful. Like the TI-84, I just looked it up, was made in 2004. Like, is there any other technology from like 20 years ago that we use that hasn't changed? So like, why do we use this technology in our classroom that is outdated? So like, we're really like pushing Excel and like teaching them how to use Excel because I've looked that up before, but it makes you like 150% more marketable if you know how to use Excel, and you make like 120% more if you know how to use Excel. So like it is a very real life thing. Calculators, like finance calculators, those finance formulas are crazy, but everybody is, well, we hope that everybody can go out and get a job and buy a house and things like that. But like teaching them to actually Google and say, okay, which calculator do you want to use? Like, do you want to know what your monthly payment's going to be, or the total cost of the entire loan? Like, can we go find which calculator we need to use and which buttons they're going to give us and different things like that. So and just like looking at more real life data in those and doing activities and projects. Like, I think out of the 7 of us that are going to pilot the 2 classes in the spring, we're going to have 7 different sections. I would say 5 of us probably won't give like a single test in class. Like we want projects, we want activities in class. Like we want to keep assessment different and like make it more interactive and try to make it more real life so that it is useful to them and they see that. There's one other thing that soon to be Dr. Paul said, and that I like too, but the confidence. Like I feel like if I can go in my classroom with students and build that confidence with them quickly, then, or if they take one class first and then come to college algebra, then maybe they'll be successful. Like that they're successful in the first one, maybe they'll be successful in the second one. Like I use an adaptive software, but I purposely put easy questions in there at the beginning to get because I hope that they're going to get them right, so that I can say, look, don't tell me that you don't know math. Don't tell me that you're not good at math. Like you just did that and you have that. And that confidence like helps them tremendously. So like, yes.
I really love some of what you said, Andrew. I love everything that you said, to be fair. And I think that, first of all, just yesterday and today in 2 different classes, I talked about the value of Excel and how no matter how many courses you've taken in graduate level statistics, when you actually go out and you're applying for jobs, everybody just wants to know if you can make pivot tables and can we please just use Excel well. And so it's very marketable. But that also made me think, you talked about technology, and it made me think about AI as well. And I really think that the growth in the availability of AI is a call to action for us, not to prevent students from cheating, but to ask, what value are we adding over AI as professors and instructors? If we continue to teach math using the same techniques, not just calculators from 20 years ago, but using the assumptions about what sort of skills are needed to be successful in real world math thinking that were used at the turn of the 20th century, then we're really not doing our students justice. When they can go on and Google an answer or get a ChatGPT answer in 5 minutes, have I asked a question that is truly preparing them for the future or adding any value whatsoever over something they could do on their own less tediously? And so I think that in not just in focusing on the redesign, but just in shifting what it means to put students at the center, we have to think about what we're doing as teachers. Are we helping them be more creative? Are we helping them add their own value over what a machine can do when they're entering the job market? And so I think that in review of some of the alternative assessments and performance tasks and applied tasks in that college algebra, that they're going to have that kind of experience as well that you're talking about with the MGF classes. We're thinking, we're reasoning, we are solving real problems, and not just a click on getting that right answer. Let's shift that focus. It's not, did I get the right answer? It's how am I going to use this? Let's use it right now in that way.
No, and that's that. Sorry, I was smiling there because that AI thing, like I actually encouraged one of my classes to use AI a little bit, because it's not easy to use. Like, you got to know how to use it a little bit, and you need to explain to me. Like I said, don't just read it to me, like explain to me what they're doing there, and then I'll take your answer. And that's kind of the other thing. I'm pretty sure Netflix offered an AI position that's like $900,000. So hey, go figure out how to do AI, and then that'd be awesome. And then like the questions and the different things you said that about, are we doing a good job? The big conversation everywhere I go is like proctor testing and how we're doing it on the online version and different things like that. Well, there's a quote I read the other day that said, if we are worried about our students accessing the internet to complete exams, perhaps our exams are not asking the right questions. Google doesn't have the answers, it has information, and students find answers through good thinking. So like, yeah, that's kind of like, maybe we just need better questions if we, and students wouldn't cheat so much. So yeah, like, sorry, that was a different conversation, but that, you made me think of that too.
Megan, anything to add to that? I know that we were waiting to hear about your implementation experience.
Yeah, so when we started we're developing an MGF 1130 course, or X130 if you prefer that. And one of the things that we wanted when one of our goals when we started out is that we wanted, when instructors looked at the course, they wanted to be able to look at it and have an idea of what it looked like in the classroom. And we wanted them to have an idea of what the different units or the different modules would be. So we wanted it to be very instructor friendly. And instead of just like a cloud of topics or a list of topics, we really wanted there to be structure. So we built out the course initially with 5 topic areas. And within each of those topic areas, there will be instructor resources, projects, both short activities that you could maybe do in class, or larger, more elaborate projects. Some of them, all of them were hands-on, but some of them aren't necessarily like written projects. They might be projects they do with students. And then of course we have assessments built out as well. Through the process, we've learned that what is in scans and how those topics might be interpreted can really vary a lot. So my favorite current example is visualizing data. We took that more of a statistics graphical approach, and we're learning that some of our colleagues are thinking more in terms of Venn diagrams. So the different ways that you can interpret this topics, we're going to build that into the course so that there's options for instructors. And that's the essence of liberal arts math, right? There's an interpretive piece. So what we've learned through the pilot is how we interpreted a topic is not necessarily how somebody else will. So we'll build out other topical areas for our instructors. We're also working on, I mentioned projects, those will be kind of active learning activities. And then we also want to build out some instructor materials, sample schedules, some tutorials, if they want to modify assignments, some step-by-step instructions for modifying assignments. This is an electronic assignment. How can you make it a paper and pencil activity? That sort of thing. So we want it to be very instructor friendly, especially this first iteration. Like, we know we're going to make changes, so we want the support to be there for our instructors.
Great. Megan, I think someone had asked, can you share the 5 topic areas?
Yes. So the 5 topic areas that we started with were a logic section, and we wanted to include a little bit of sets in there, again, to give the instructors some flexibility. There's a unit on number theory, measurement, geometry and statistics. We were very passionate, particularly about the measurement section. We thought that was critical because we think that a lot of our health sciences students could take this class. They might take another class, but we probably will have some significant population of health sciences students. So we were very adamant about keeping a measurement section in there.
Awesome. So Kiaira, we've got some time for Q&A. Does that sound good?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, my colleague, Deborah Martin, is going to read aloud the Q&A that she's gotten. I guess we can see two of them, and then there are some in the chat box. So Deborah, take it away for us.
Of course. So I have one question here from Nicole. It's my understanding that many students will test into 1033 intermediate algebra, but doesn't see it anywhere on the pathways. How does intermediate algebra fit into the new math pathways framework?
So the general education core course would be college algebra. And so the starting point for that math pathway will be college algebra. And so the starting point for that math pathway will be college algebra. So how you get to that starting point will be college algebra. So I'll just leave it there. And I think that definitely the folks that were in the room can kind of give a little bit of information about, I think that there was just a growing concern about kind of 1033 was sort of this black box that folks would just sort of go into and folks wouldn't kind of come out of. And so we just communicate that the starting point is college algebra. Tommy, Megan,
Yeah.
you all have any other thoughts?
I'll add to that and also help answer Andrew's question in the Q&A as well, because it's related. In the committee, in the Math Pathways Committee discussions, as we were looking at the gateway courses, there was a fairly consensus opinion that we wanted statistical reasoning and mathematical thinking, so STA 2023 and the new MGF, to not have a college level prereq, to make it so that students going from developmental or exempt students could go directly in that, make that a true gateway course in those two programs. For college algebra, yes, intermediate algebra would still be there as a prerequisite. We had no sense of trying to remove it. However, there was also a lot of feeling in the room because some representatives are already doing co-requisite models at some of the colleges using MAC 1105C. There's MAC 1101 that some of the universities have, which is a 4 or 5 credit combo intermediate college algebra. So we were like, there already could be a way to get into the gateway course without having to go through intermediate, and we encourage more colleges to look at that co-requisite model. As far as placement, state statute only defines college readiness placement. So in other words, how to bypass developmental. After that, it's institutional decision. And so there was no way in our pathway we were going to start telling institutions what you had to do for placement mechanisms and requirements. You can do alternate placement mechanisms. You can set your own cutoff scores for college algebra on per SAT, ACT. We weren't going to even touch those. And there's nothing in the state common numbering that dictates prerequisites or placement. So therefore, some of the colleges around the state already have no prerequisite on MGF. So this is not going to be a big deal for them. There are a lot of colleges that don't have any prerequisite on STA either, no college level prerequisites. So they could keep those. If other colleges wanted to continue to require intermediate algebra before taking statistics or MGF, that's their prerogative. There's nothing at the state level that prevents them from doing it. We just made the recommendation that we felt there shouldn't be, and then add co-requisite content, add review content, review modules, things like that to get students up to speed in those courses.
So I'm at one of the institutions that offers a co-requisite model for the college algebra, and in writing the course shell for college algebra, me and again my writing partner VJ, we have Sam sorry, it's not present today, but we have designed the college algebra shell starting with a co-requisite model and then reducing in order to have a more streamlined shell that doesn't depend on those co-requisite hours. And so I just want to talk about that for a moment, because all of the prerequisite skills that are assessed in the co-requisite course are still going to be available in the college algebra shell under a foundational skills module that instructors could pull from if they see that individual students or the class as a whole really is struggling with a core concept like factoring, or with really understanding the nature of multiple representations of functions. So the co-requisite model has been an effort to make sure that students can enter getting credit for a core class without having to take those elective level math classes that aren't moving them forward on a pathway. At our institution, instead of having a 3 contact hours and 3 credit hours for college algebra, we offer 5 contact hours and 4 credit hours earned for the 1105C, or the co-requisite course. And so that course has been a delight because it really provides the opportunity to allow students who would have gone into 1033 to engage immediately in those college algebra levels while consistently reinforcing those baseline skills that they're going to need in order to tackle the meat of college algebra. Having those extra 2 contact hours per week, I think, has been significantly more helpful in moving students towards successful completion of college algebra than having them take the sequence of 1033 followed by 1105. And so I think that Florida's moving in the right direction by allowing a greater swath of students to go right into those credit-bearing college level courses without having to take courses, pay for courses, and pass courses that really represent that secondary level knowledge that they should have entered. It's kind of a great model, and so it's something like, if anybody has questions in the future, they're more than welcome to reach out, and I can share just some of what we've been doing and the successes that we've had at Tallahassee Community College.
Okay, great. We have a next question here. Is there a date when the state expects to send out the recommended courses for AS programs?
I do not have an exact date, but it is coming soon, and that information will come from the Office of Articulation. But it will be coming soon.
All right, thank you. Another question here I have, recently at the Council of Instructional Affairs, several colleges stated they are building equivalencies between the new courses and MGF 1106 and 1107. Is there any state guidance on this, or do we just need to consider the student learning outcomes?
Yes, so I do believe that the math core shells that will be developed will be a really great resource for you all when those are made available. So that will provide a lot of guidance. We'll also do a webinar when that rolls out, and so those will be made available in the spring. And so hopefully as early as January, we'll start promoting that information. And so stay tuned, that information will be forthcoming.
Thank you, Kiaira. Someone asked, when will the open educational resources, those template courses for MGF, be available for institutions to review?
So that will be made available in the spring. Okay.
And I think Tommy did answer this, but I'm just going to say it just to make sure we cover it in case. Are the placement testing requirements the same for each of the pathways? And if they don't meet the requirements, are there different quote unquote pre-classes like intermediate algebra for college algebra for each of the pathways?
Yeah, again, that would be an institutional decision. You can decide if you want to have intermediate algebra as a prereq for all 3. If you want to continue to use MAT 1100, which a lot of colleges have used, there's STA 1001 that some colleges have used as a prereq for stats. or you can just make it developmental, and you can have multiple different types of developmental courses. So yes, that would be an entirely institutional decision to decide how you want those gateway courses, how you want students to enter those.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I think that is the most perfect ending time. So Kim, we are at 4:30, and that is it for all the questions.
Yes, thank you all so much for your time. What a speedy 60 minutes that was. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to Kiaira for being our keynote and our panel MC. I just wanted to close by sharing our next webinar. We try to do these monthly, the Hot Topic series, and all of us who are passionate about math in the future of data sharing are going to want to attend this collaborative data sharing webinar that FCAN is hosting with the Central Florida Education Ecosystem Database leaders at the 4 institutions who make up CFEED. So please save the date. It's the last Tuesday in November after Thanksgiving from 3:30 to 4:30, same time frame that you just joined us on. So please save the date. We'll be sending out more about this early next week at the collaborative data sharing webinar. But thank you all so much for joining us. We'll wish you well for the rest of your day, and please look forward to sending or receiving the follow-up notes, some FAQ answers that Kiaira and I will work on together in our key takeaways blog post and in the recording. Also the contact information for our amazing panelists if you are willing to share that. So thank you all so much.